Are you a procrastinator? I I am definitely sometimes a procrastinator. Sometimes I'm like on my game. I've got everything in a row. I know what needs to get done. I don't kind of put my head in the sand. But I have been procrastinating for at least 2 weeks of taping this podcast. I try to keep things really positive and upbeat. And lately, I've just been feeling the heaviness of this year, the heaviness of some of the things going on in my personal life and in the people that I love. And so I was struggling to figure out, what on earth am I going to tape today? What am I going to share for my next solo podcast? And so I decided that instead of escaping the fact that um, the world is a tough place right now, I'm just going to lean into it and dive into it. Um, First off, 2020, when we were approaching 2020, I kept thinking, oh my goodness, it sounds like space age, right? It kind of sounds like we should be living in the Jetsons world. We have flying cars and pills that are food, and it just seems so, I don't know. It just seems like, growing up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, 2020 sounded so far away. And here we are. And so I really embraced it. I'm like, 2020, it's a cool year. My son was going to be graduating high school. I always thought that was kind of a fun year to graduate in. So I would say I had some really big hopes and dreams. I knew I'd be launching Socket in 2020. So I went into this year with a lot of excitement and a lot of, I don't know, just feeling good. And I was on vacation in the middle of March. My friend Danielle is on a local radio station, and so they do a yearly trip. And so she had a +1, and so she reached out to me a few months prior to that and said, "Hey, you want to go on a free trip?" And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I do." And so we left from Chicago to fly to Mexico for this trip on, I think, March 7th. And I remember us kind of having mild conversations of, man, this is okay, right? Like with COVID, it was starting to really come in a little bit into the United States, and it was getting more notoriety, and we were hearing about it more in the press. But we all kind of agreed, hey, I don't think this should ruin our vacation. It just didn't seem like a big enough deal here, or that if we were in danger, we were putting anyone else in danger. And we had a great trip. And on the last day of the trip, we flew home on the 14th, and we were sitting in the pool overlooking the ocean thinking, are we going to be able to get back into the United States? I do believe a few people from the trip flew home early because they were really concerned about that. And we were able to get back into the United States, no problem. But later that day, there were pictures online of people waiting 7 or 8 hours in the same line that we had stood in 3 hours ago. So I feel like we kind of just got in right at the right time. That week, I went to my practice on Monday and had a staff meeting. And I'm a chiropractor. We do chiropractic physical therapy and massage. And I felt like I had left a week ago, left one world, and then I'm walking in on Monday, and it just felt like everything was different. I wasn't exactly sure what that meant or what was going to happen, but there was just this trepidation and this unknowing and this feeling unsure, which I never feel when I walk in my practice. And so before I get into a little bit of what we went through there with closing and financial issues and things like that, I do want to say, as I talk about COVID and I talk about the things that we've lost, like vacations or proms or things like that, that have been a loss to many of us, I just want to first mention people that have lost their lives, people that have elderly people at home or people that are sick at home, people that weren't able to go see their family in the hospital when they were sick, people that had to give birth and only have one person there, or maybe not no people there, depending on the hospital policy, couldn't have their children come meet their little one, couldn't have a doula if they wanted to, people that are immune compromised, that this was something that they felt more fear than I personally felt for myself. So I just want to make kind of a blanket statement that I understand that some of the things that I'm going to say are just so far down on the list of the things that some people have gone through. And my heart has gone out to those people from the beginning of this and will continue to. So back to my practice, met with my staff, and I kind of said, where's everyone at? Like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? Still coming to the office? And for the most part, on that Monday, people were feeling okay about it. I did have one staff member said, you know what? I'm feeling uncomfortable. I said, no worries. We'll just take you off the schedule and we'll figure it out. And by Friday, we actually closed. So within, a 5-day period of time, we almost all went from, no, we're okay, this should be fine, to, okay, this is getting a lot more serious. So that was the week from that, the March 16th to I think the 20th, that everything got a little more serious and a little more real. And we really didn't know what was going to happen. We obviously work very closely with patients. There's no way for us to social distance an adjustment. I can't fax you an adjustment. I can't Zoom an adjustment. And so it was a very scary time because I personally felt so responsible for my staff members. I felt responsible for how am I going to pay them if we don't have any income coming in. And at first I was told by my accountant, you have to put everyone on unemployment. You have to furlough everyone. And that just kept me up at night. I know, many of my staff members depend on that bi-weekly income. And so I gave everyone a bonus and I said, I don't know there's any other way to do it. Like, I'm not going to have the money to pay you as we don't have any patients coming in. And you can, get some of your income from unemployment. So I think that's the safest and the best thing to do, but it really hurt my heart to do that because that's not what I wanted to do. Then they came along, the SBA, with this PPP loan, and I won't get into the details of it, but the ups and downs of trying to navigate getting this loan and the feeling as if, well, there's limited money, so you've got to figure this out super quick. I mean, God bless my accountant and my banker. They were Johnny on the spot. They were on top of things. I must have texted my accountant 20 times a day and she just responded right away. I sent them flowers at one point. I was like, thank you so much for getting us through that. But this loan had all this paperwork that went into it and the rules kept changing and you never really knew what it was. And I think the paperwork changed, I don't know, 5-6 times. And I certainly came close to losing it. One time, Jason couldn't find me downstairs. He knew I'd been working in the dining room or something. And he finally comes outside and it's a nice day in early April. And I am laying on the ground. I was done. I was like, I need to go ground myself. I think I wrote a blog post about it on Socket. And I'm laying there and he's like, kind of just like a little concerned, like, baby, are you okay? And I was like, I am 93% sure I will be okay eventually, but right now I'm so stressed out. Luckily, we were able to get that PPP money, which covered about 8 weeks of my my staff's salary, which was awesome. But then on the back end, rules kept changing, and now I have to pay taxes on the money, even though I didn't take that money personally. So that has been a huge stressor for me financially. And then we were closed for about 6 weeks. And we kept getting calls from people saying, I'm really struggling. I threw my back out. I'm not sure. Should I go to the emergency room if you're closed? We were there trying to see emergency patients, a couple a week. But for the most part, we were closed. And then people were calling in saying my headaches came back, or, my child that had been doing so well with your care is now backsliding. And at some point I felt the obligation to open back up and then just work on being as safe as humanly possible. So, we went to mass, therapists were wearing gloves. Obviously we were sanitizing and, I always like to tell people, not like we weren't clean before, we're just uber clean now. And so we ended up opening back up and kind of slowly seeing more and more patients, and people were so thankful to be coming in. And so that's been kind of my financial portion of this, and not taking salary for months and months and months. And I've been through that before, and 21 years into business, I feel fortunate that I'm a little bit more stable to be able to weather some of that. And then you look at people that have lost their jobs like completely, or cut hours or cut pay, and the heaviness of that, and trying to provide for your family. And then you think about essential workers that had to work and had to leave their homes when they didn't feel comfortable, in a sense of duty for taking care of people that were sick. Again, just all of it was just really hung in the air. It's like, if you went outside or you went to the grocery store, there was this feeling of tension that just permeated everything. Everyone looked tense, felt tense. And it doesn't feel exactly that same way now. Now I'm taping this in early October. So it doesn't feel that way anymore now. It still does a little bit. But those beginning phases of not knowing what COVID was going to do, and how bad it was going to be, were really stressful, for me and for, I know, many of you. And then we came across graduation. My son was a senior. I know many of you had children in positions of celebration times, right? You're graduating a birthday, you're graduating a graduation from college or from high school or maybe middle school. You had proms, any type of celebration. It's funny, my son Christopher was like, anytime I told people that he was a senior, they would respond with, "Oh, I'm so sorry, missed out on everything." And if you take it from Christopher's perspective, he was like, "You know what? I mean, we don't have to do prom, and I don't really want to go to graduation. I'll graduate anyway, and I don't have to go to school for a couple months." So he took it all pretty much in stride. So that decreased my stress level, because I certainly know friends that had children, grown adults almost, that were very, very upset for those losses. And then they tried to make up, we saw like prom pictures coming out 3 months later where they would get all dressed up, because of course the girl already had her prom dress for months prior to this happening. And so they tried to make a little lemonade out of lemons. And then vacations. We were planning this big vacation. I have a friend of mine, Monica. She and I have been single parenting for years together. We met each other when we were both married, and our babies were little, like on the ground in boppies with bottles. And so when she got divorced, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, we started kind of just helping each other. We lived really close to each other. So like, "Hey, can you grab my garbage cans because I'm going out of town?" Or, "Hey, I'm cooking turkey tacos and I have a ton of them. Do you and your 3 kids want to come over for dinner?" And so we've kind of done life together. We have spent holidays together. I personally don't have any family in town right now. So sometimes Thanksgiving, there wasn't much going on. So Monica always had a big celebration. So we always went over there, or we did brunch Christmas morning. And so we decided we were going to take one big last trip with our kids. So it's going to be she and I, and then our 5 kids, and 4 of them, she has triplets. So 4 of them were graduating seniors. And it was I think we were supposed to leave the end of May or beginning of April. And we kept going, "No, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. We'll be okay." And as we got closer, we're like, "Yeah, we're not going to be okay. We can't go." So that was a super big bummer. And then I was supposed to go to a seminar in June with Kelly Thompson, who is the woman who founded Naples Moms Network that I took over when she moved to Austin, Texas in 2011, and then now is called the Branch Moms Community as we expanded into other towns. So every year I tried to do something to thank her for starting this amazing community, because it just never would have happened without her heart pouring everything she could into it. I've loved running it for almost a decade now, but I wouldn't be running it. There wouldn't be this mom's community that helps people connect and find friendship and find play dates and find support and resources. It just wouldn't be in creation without her. So I was going to take her to the Rachel Hollis Women's Conference in San Diego. And we were so excited. We hadn't seen each other for a really long time. And of course that got canceled as well. On a personal front, my fiance Jason tore his ACL, MCL, and meniscus and partially fractured his fibula. He injured himself in May. And also in May, I partially tore my elbow. Wow, this is a super fun podcast, isn't it? And this year has just been kind of piling on and piling on and piling on. His dad also recently passed away, was really sick, not from COVID, but he had been ill for a long time. So a couple of weeks ago, he passed away. So on a personal front, outside of what's going on in the world, we also can talk about racial tension, divide, and issues going on, the election, and all of the stress that is causing, and the social media aspects of both of those, and just the stress that many people feel one side or the other. That's something I'm not even going to get into right now. I would need a lot more podcasts to figure all that out. And so at the end of the day, why I share all of that is I know that many of you have a laundry list of things just like I do. Being home, kind of stuck in the house with young kids. My kids are older, so I didn't have to deal with, oh my goodness, I don't get a break. There was a little video on Facebook. Sometimes these little videos and memes are like saving grace to get a little laugh out sometimes. But it was a little girl, she was maybe 4 or 5, and she's sitting at the center island eating cereal. And her mom's videotaping her. And I think asking her, like, repeat what you just said. That was funny. And the little girl looks up, or she looks down, and she was like, I wake up, Mom. I play, Mom's right there. I eat lunch, Mom. I take a nap, Mom. I do this, dinner, Mom. Bedtime, Mom. And she'd been looking down, eating her cereal the entire time. And then she looks up and she looks at her mom. She goes, I just need a break from you. Someone posted it on the branch on our mom forum group and said, I think my 13-year-old feels the exact same way. So while for many of us being in our homes and kind of on quarantine for a period of time, you know, we took some gems away from that, right? Like we played so many Monopoly games and we had so many family dinners and conversations, and we definitely had some of that really awesome family time. But there was also that, like, I'm crawling out of my skin, I need to get out of here feeling too. So it was interesting to balance that. And I know with older kids, I don't have to bathe them. I don't have to feed them. I don't have to change diapers. I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night because they're up. So our version of that in our home was way, way easier than many of your versions at home. So I feel for you. I really do. I have some friends that have like 2 or 3 kids under 4. I should have sent them something. I probably should have sent them some sort of dinner or something, all of them. So I'm sorry if you're out there. I would have sent you something had I been in a better headspace. So at the end of the day, I wanted to talk about, what do you do when your life is heavy? Where do you put it all? Like, how do you keep yourself healthy mentally and physically? Because that is not easy. It's really not easy. For the first month and a half of quarantine, Jason and I basically decided, well, we're kind of like on vacation, right? We don't have to get up for anything. We're working from home. He works for Zoom, so he works from home anyway. But for me, I wasn't going into my practice. So I could basically live in pajamas because I can run the branch moms from pajamas out of my living room. I was working on Socket. I can do that from my living room in my pajamas. Showers seemed optional. Every once in a while, I'm like, how long has it been since I've taken a shower? And if I couldn't remember, I thought maybe I should take a shower. That seems like a good thing for me to do right now. But I went into like no holds barred vacation eating, having a couple too many cocktails at night. It'd be like 4:30. And I was like, maybe we should have a Tito's and soda. That seems like a really good idea because I don't have to wake up. I don't have an alarm going off tomorrow. I don't have to do anything. Like my time is my own right now. And again, I know some of you did not have that luxury. So while I'm complaining, I also was grateful for that luxury. And when we would go to the grocery store, we were stocking up because we just didn't know. We did not hoard anything. I'm very proud of that. We had normal amounts of things, maybe a little extra of toilet paper and paper towel if we found them. But we would go and we'd be like, we were getting like cookies and candy and ice cream and bagels. I mean, things we just don't normally keep in the house. I'm not really sure what we thought. We thought we were going to, you know, have a sugar deprived life or something. But I think it was just a way of comforting ourselves, right? Food, alcohol, anything like that is something that changes our brain chemistry. It numbs us to some degree. And so when there's stressful times, there are many people that resort more to those things. And we got about 6 weeks in, and I know I looked at him, I said, I feel like shit. I felt so crappy. My body was bloated. I didn't have much energy. My blood sugar, I'm sure my blood sugar was off. And so we both decided that we were going to kind of get our health acts together. And we kind of got most of the crap out of the house. I took a break from drinking, which I do from periods of times. I kind of go up and down with it. Sometimes I'm kind of, hey, I'm going to have a bunch of drinks for a week. And then sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm going to go 3 months or I'm going to go a year and just take a breather from it. I enjoy drinking, but sometimes it's just enough is enough. I also don't, and I've talked about this on other podcasts or even blogs that I've written for Socket. Once I start having a couple drinks, I make really poor food choices. So my weight tends to go up and down based on, if I'm not drinking at all, I eat really healthy. Because I think it just, my blood sugar is not being affected by the alcohol. I'm not sluggish at all. And when I am, I'll pull out a grilled cheese at like 11:30, or I need to make some sort of chips and cheese and salsa. I don't know, something like that. I'm not really sure where I got that from, but that seems what comes out of me when I've had a couple cocktails. So anyway, we kind of tried to get our act together and to keep ourselves a little bit healthier so that we could be healthier physically and even mentally. Because when you're not healthy physically, you're not healthy mentally. It kind of, they kind of go together. So I made a little list of things that have helped me to try to not let the heaviness steal all of your joy, because it's really easy during phases like this. And this isn't all about 2020. This is anytime. This is life in general. We're all going to go through chapters and phases that are truly difficult. Some harder than others. So the number one thing that I do when I get to that place where I feel like everything's on top of me, is I try to compartmentalize those thoughts and those issues. When I was going through my divorce in 2007, 2008, I went through a bankruptcy. I lost my home. It was a really challenging time for me for multiple reasons. I almost closed my practice and folded it into another practice. I had a 3 and 4-year-old little boy, and I had no money. I know I've talked about that before. And things were super overwhelming to me. And every moment of every day felt like so much was on top of me. And it just was all just piping up. Like all these little issues were speaking up nonstop, and I didn't know how to make sense of them. And I wasn't quite sure how to keep some of my happiness, keep my sanity. And as a chiropractor, we have physical therapy things in our office. And one day I was sitting on this big Theraball. You know what I'm talking about? Those big exercise balls. You can do crunches on them or all kinds of things, stretches on them, things like that. And so I remember thinking, maybe I could just put all my problems in the Theraball. And as I continue to develop this thought process for compartmentalizing negative things that you're going through, it came out with what I call the Theraball Technique. I would take each issue. So going through divorce, handling that. I'm having financial issues. I want to make sure I'm a great mom for my 2 children who are dealing with a divorce in their own way. Excuse me. I'm going to lose my house. Where am I going to live? I have no money. What am I going to do with the practice? So I had multiple things going on that, again, were swirling above me. And so I decided that I was going to mentally put each of them in a little bubble. So I've got a bubble for divorce, a bubble for being a mom, a bubble for financial issues, a bubble for the practice, a bubble for where the heck am I going to live that only takes $100. That's all I had. And I would put all those things in those bubbles. So now I have all these multiple bubbles. And I could mentally put those bubbles inside of that Theraball. And then I could sit on top of the Theraball. And that did a couple of things. Number one, I wasn't denying that the problems were there because they were there. Number two, I was intentionally putting them in a smaller space in my head, as opposed to being all up here. Now, okay, you're right there. I can see you. You're smaller. And number three, I was sitting on top of them. So instead of them being on top of me, I was on top of them. And then when I knew I had to deal with one of them, I would mentally take that bubble out of the Theraball. I'd crack it open for a period of time. Sometimes I'd say, hey, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, or I'm going to do this for 15 minutes. And I would grieve, or I would just give thought to it, or try to make next steps. What are the next 3 things that I need to do with this specific issue? And at the end of that 10 or 15 minutes, I would say to myself, is there anything else I can do right now today to make this problem better? And if the answer was no, I would put that bubble back together. I would put it back in the Theraball and continue to sit on it instead of it being on top of me. And that truly helped me get through that time when I had so many issues going on. And so that would be a recommendation for me to all of you and to myself right now. Those bubbles have changed for me. I'm well past my divorce. My kids are almost 17 and 18 and very self-sufficient. Financially, even though this year has been a down year for me, I'm doing okay. And so my bubbles have changed, but those bubbles are always going to change, right? Life is not promised to be all butterflies and rainbows and joy all the time. There's lots of struggles that human beings go through. And this year just seems to be one of those years that there's going to be more bubbles. That's what I feel. And so you can put the election, you can put racial issues, you can put COVID, you can put e-learning at home and the struggles that, I'm going, you can put my kids are at college, but they just got quarantined. You can put, I don't have enough money to pay my mortgage next month. You can put all of these things. My dad's about to pass away. I have an injury that's preventing me from taking care of my health. All of them. It's a lot. So, but you can put them in smaller spaces in your head. And then you can take all of those smaller bubbles with all those problems, those big problems, some of them are big, and you can sit on it. And sometimes you can get up from that ball. You can put that ball in the corner. Again, you're not saying those problems aren't there. You're not denying them, but you can tuck them away for a period of time so you're not connected to them all. And try to make sure that you are still feeling joy. You are still finding moments of happiness. And that leads me to the second thing on my list is focusing on gratitude. Within Socket, Plug Into You, we talk a lot about gratitude. And it takes some intention and some practice to really find ways to put that at the forefront. But if you have a warm home or apartment or space or family to quarantine with, or if you've had that, then that's something to truly be grateful for, because some people don't have that. Some people live by themselves and is provided extra struggle and loneliness. I know I've been trying to really pay attention, plug into nature. When I was growing up, we had a project we had to do where we had to pick wildflowers, dry them, and then put them into a scrapbook. And then we had to figure out what their names were and write a little description of it. And Jason and I, as he's healing from his knee surgery, he's able to walk now. So that's been, excuse me, that's been great. So we've been going on this walk down by the river by our, it reminds me of Chris Farley, down by the river. So we've been on this walk down by the river, not in a van. There's no van there. But anyway, and there's all these beautiful wildflowers. And I was I was remembering the project that we did. So we kept going on, kept going down. I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to recreate that. Why not? Brings me happiness. I like flowers, especially the yellow ones and the purple ones. So I found 12 different varieties of flowers, posted it on the Socket community and on our Facebook page. People were telling me, oh, that's goldenrod, or that's white lily's lace, or something like that. They're in the process of drying, so I haven't officially figured out which ones are what. But and just putting that intention into nature, into something beautiful, helped me feel a lot of joy those days. And now every time I go downstairs, I see this big box that's sitting on top of, newspaper and parchment paper to help them dry. And I know, hey, once they're done drying, I'm gonna be able to put them in this, I got this little scrapbook, a little tiny one from the store. And I'm excited about it. And that would be something that I would just completely miss if my brain was focused on the negative stuff all day long. The number three on my list is, and I think I've already said this, it's okay to laugh and to smile and to enjoy times, even if things are really bad. At the end of Jason's dad's life, things were super stressful. And God bless Jason. He was still able every once in a while to just crack a joke. And, we'd be sitting in the family room and I could just feel his sadness and his stress. And then I would say something and he would say the funniest thing and we would bust out laughing, almost to the point we were crying. And I just told him how much I appreciated that he was able to still keep a little bit of his humor. Because we all need that, right? It's okay to laugh at the funny meme. It's okay to dive into your children and really enjoy that tickle fight or playing in the park or whatever brings you joy, whatever brings you happiness. I feel like sometimes when things are heavy, people feel guilty and as if they shouldn't do that, right? Like things are too stressful. Things are too serious right now. And I think that if we take those breaks from that stress, we're better able to handle them. Again, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of that, trying to keep all of that in check. Number 4 is take care of yourself. So I go back to the, 6-week vacation eating and drinking of Cathy at the beginning of quarantine that I would not recommend for anyone. Actually, you know what? The first 2 weeks were really fun. And that's okay. Sometimes you got to just say, I'm just going to do whatever I want. I get it. Sometimes you just got to chill and relax all the rules and go wild. So, do that if you want to do that. But 6 weeks of that adds up too much. And we have tried to make sure we're getting out walking. I've tried to get enough sleep. Sleep is so important, especially, man, when you've got younger kids. Again, I feel for you because sometimes it's impossible to get the sleep you need. But trying to go to bed a little earlier, right? If you've got little ones you put to bed early, try to go to bed a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour earlier, just to get a little bit more of that core sleep that our bodies desperately need. Drink tons of water. People don't realize how much water you are actually supposed to drink. My understanding of it is if you take your weight, and I don't want to take my weight, but if you take my weight and you divide it in half, those are the ounces that you're supposed to drink. Well, that's that is dependent on a lot of other things. If you work out a lot and you sweat through your workouts, you're supposed to drink more. If you drink alcohol, that's going to decrease your water. That's going to decrease your hydration. Same thing with caffeine, sodas, coffee. So all of those other components, if you, let's say you wake up and you have 2 cups of coffee and you always do an hour workout and then you have 2 glasses of wine at night, you've got to bump up your water even from half of your body weight. So let's say you weigh 180 pounds. That's 90 ounces of water. I weigh more than 180 pounds, just so you know. And so just half of that is 90. But if you do all those other things, you need to increase it from there. And that's a lot of water to drink. That takes a lot of intention. When you see those mugs online where it's like these big jugs and you fill it up with water and it's like 8 a.m., 10 a.m., you're doing great, 12, hey, time for lunch and also water. And they kind of divide it out so that you can be more mindful of drinking the water that you need to. For me, I'm in the bathroom all the time because I do drink a ton of water. But I think, my skin looks better. I sleep better. Every organ and every function of your body works better if your body is hydrated. So drink that water. Number one tip for sure. As far as food goes, making sure that you're eating as healthy of a diet as possible, getting a well-rounded nutrition from vegetables and fruits and good grains and lean proteins. I know, many of you eat meat, some of you don't. So depending on where you're getting that protein from, you need to make sure you're getting enough protein. And there's a gazillion diets out there that are going to tell you contradicting things. I went to a nutrition seminar for chiropractic and there were probably 12 speakers. None of them said the same thing. I mean, all of what they said, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But then if you listen to a speaker, 2 speakers later, they contradicted everything they said with their understanding of it. So it's a really tough thing to figure out. And someone to follow is the food code. Liz Roman and Becca, Becca, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name off the fly right now. We did an interview with them for Socket, which will be coming up. And they really talk about not dying, the chronic dieting and how that affects our metabolism and not being afraid of every single carbohydrate. I just think they have a really sound way of sharing about food, our relationship to food, our body image, and things like that. So they're great people to follow. So taking care of yourself. And the last one is, you need to know if you're not okay. It's okay to not be okay. I've had a couple patients or people in my life come to me and say, I'm not okay right now. This is more than I know I can handle. I did my best to be a resource myself, but then tried to connect them with a good counselor, a good therapist, made sure I checked in with them on a more regular basis, because for some people, all that's going on in 2020 is really overwhelming. So if that's you, make sure you're taking care of yourself, because sometimes a couple stages after not being okay, things really go wrong, right? If you're drinking way too much, at some point you could get in a car and something terrible could happen, right? At some point, if your emotions are too deep down, you can really sink down into a long-term depression or a short-term depression. There's so many things that can happen if you don't raise your hand and say, I'm not okay, and then figure out ways to get the support you need. Even at the minimum, reaching out to a few friends and saying, I'm really struggling. Can we check in with each other from time to time? Sometimes just knowing that someone's there, that someone's always willing to listen is enough to kind of ease our fears and ease some of the stress that we're going through. So 2020. I really hope we never have another year like this. I really do. It's been a lot to process, a lot to go through. We still have a few more months. So I am hopeful for 2021. I am hopeful for kind of a new resetting, a new rebirth, a new a new chapter in all of our lives. So wishing that to all of you. I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Thanks for listening.